My sister dropped her bouquet the moment the military police saluted my boyfriend. White roses hit the marble floor and scattered like spilled secrets. The music died mid-note. Guests froze. My mother's laugh, the same laugh she'd used all morning to mock my fake boyfriend, choked into silence. And the man they'd been ridiculing all afternoon stood there, calmly in his worn flannel shirt and dusty boots, returning the salute. I didn't smile. I just watched the truth finally land. Because this moment didn't happen by accident. I built it. 3 months earlier, my family decided I was the embarrassing one. My older sister, Caroline, was the golden child. Perfect grades. Perfect fiancé. Perfect life. Her fiancé, Mark, was an army captain. Uniform crisp. Posture sharp. Everyone loved mentioning it. My parents treated him like a decorated hero before he even stepped into the room. And me? I was the quiet daughter, who ran a small logistics company and kept my personal life private. Apparently that meant I was failing. It started during Sunday dinner. Still single? My mother asked casually while slicing roast beef. Caroline smirked. Maybe she's waiting for a billionaire. Mark chuckled. I didn't respond. I rarely did. But then Caroline leaned back in her chair and said the line that started everything. Unless you've been hiding a boyfriend from us. I looked down at my glass. Then I said calmly, actually, I have. The silence was thick. Then came the laughter. Daniel and I had met years ago through a federal contract my company handled. He was quiet, observant, the kind of man who noticed things other people missed. Most people saw an ordinary guy in a pickup truck. They never looked deeper. But I knew exactly who he was. Daniel Carter. Special Operations, Military Intelligence Liaison. The kind of man who spent more time in classified briefings than public ceremonies. And the kind of man who absolutely hated attention, which made him perfect for what I had in mind. I told my family he'd come to the wedding. That was enough to keep them entertained for weeks. They imagined a loser. A construction worker. Maybe a mechanic. Someone they could laugh at. I never corrected them. Because the crueler they became, the sweeter the ending would be. The day of the wedding, Daniel arrived exactly the way I asked him to. Old truck, flannel shirt. Work boots. He looked like he'd come straight off a construction site. My cousin whispered loudly, "Did he get lost on the way to a lumberyard?" My aunt snorted wine through her nose. Daniel didn't react. He never does. Caroline saw him first. Her smile stretched like a knife. "Oh, wow," she said loudly, grabbing Mark's arm. "This must be the boyfriend." Mark looked Daniel up and down. Then he laughed. Not a polite laugh. A cruel one. "Well," Mark said, pulling a $20 bill from his wallet and flicking it toward Daniel. "The venue might need a janitor after the reception." The bill floated to the floor between them. Guests laughed. My father shook his head like I'd disappointed him personally. And Daniel? He simply looked down at the money, then back up at Mark. His voice stayed calm. "No thank you, Captain." Something about the way he said it made Mark frown slightly. But the moment passed. The ceremony started. And my family continued their quiet jokes the entire time. But I wasn't watching the vows. I was watching the entrance, waiting, counting seconds. Because earlier that morning, Daniel made one phone call. Just one. The doors opened halfway through the reception. 2 military police officers walked in. Uniforms sharp. Faces serious. The music slowed awkwardly. Guests turned. The officers scanned the room, then walked straight toward our table. Mark looked confused. Caroline looked annoyed. My mother looked embarrassed. Then both officers stopped in front of Daniel and snapped into a salute. "Sir." The room fell silent. Daniel stood slowly. For the first time all day, his posture changed. His shoulders straightened. His presence filled the room. He returned the salute. And suddenly, the man in the flannel shirt didn't look ordinary at all. The officer spoke again. "Command requested immediate confirmation, Colonel Carter." "Colonel." The word echoed through the room like a dropped grenade. Mark's face went pale. Caroline's bouquet slipped from her fingers and hit the floor. You could actually hear people whispering. "Colonel? Military intelligence? That guy?" Daniel glanced at me briefly. A small nod. Then he turned back to the officers. "Understood," he said calmly. They stepped aside. But the damage was done. Mark looked like someone had kicked the air out of his lungs. His mouth opened, closed. "You're A colonel? Daniel shrugged slightly. I prefer flannel. A few guests nervously laughed. Mark didn't. He stared at the $20 bill still sitting on the floor, then at Daniel, then at me. And suddenly he understood. Caroline looked at me like she'd swallowed glass. You knew? I picked up a glass of champagne, took a slow sip, then finally allowed myself to smile. Yes, people assume revenge means anger, yelling, breaking things, but the most satisfying revenge is patience. Letting arrogant people reveal themselves, letting them dig their own hole, then simply stepping aside. The reception ended early. Guests whispered the entire time they left. Mark never touched Daniel's hand when it was offered. And Caroline never looked at me again that night. Later, Daniel and I walked to his truck under the quiet glow of the parking lot lights. He leaned against the hood. You enjoyed that, he said. I didn't deny it. They needed perspective. He smirked slightly. You know they'll talk about this for years. I looked back at the wedding hall doors. My sister's perfect day, permanently cracked. Good, I said. Then I climbed into the passenger seat, and for the first time in years, I felt completely at peace.